Welcome to AASHTO Resource Q&A. We're taking time to discuss construction materials testing and inspection with people in the know. From exploring testing problems and solutions to laboratory best practices and quality management, we're covering topics important to you.
Welcome to AASHTO Resource Q&A. I'm Brian Johnson.
And I'm Kim Swanson, and we are here today with one of the last few episodes of season 5, and we're talking about everyone's favorite event, the AASHTO Resource Technical Exchange.
That's right. Today we are joined by Bob Lutz and Tracy Barnhart, our usual go-to guests for talking about the Technical Exchange, since they are our most significant direction setters and planners for the event. So welcome to the podcast, Bob.
Thanks, Brian and Kim. I feel like we just did this. Has it been a year?
It has. It has.
Indeed. It has. It has felt like very little time has gone by. And somehow we managed to get another season of the podcast out and circle back to the next TechX. Tracy, welcome.
Well, thank you, Brian. And thank you for referring to me as most significant. I'm not sure the last time anyone ever said that to me, except my husband. So thank you.
That might be an actual dig at your boss who is on this call. I'm just saying.
Well, you certainly have provided a significant contribution and continue to do so related to the Technical Exchange. We're going to talk about some of the things that are different. One of the things that is certainly different between the AASHTO Resource Technical Exchange and just about every event I've ever gone to is that there is a lot of preparation for attendees. Most events I go to, there you get some information, but there certainly aren't podcasts on or special events where you get to learn about how to make the most of the event for a relatively short event that only draws about 300 people. Actually, what do you? And does anybody want to take a stab at, or does anybody want to guess less violently that how many attendees we typically have for the Technical Exchange?
I will take a stab at that. I think we had about 250 in Boston last year. Is that correct, Bob? That's what I recollect anyway. And the numbers are trending so far this year pretty close to that. So hopefully we'll get around that number, maybe more.
Yeah, I'm sure we know the exact number somewhere, so we probably don't have to guess, but yeah, somewhere between 250 and 260.
Yeah, and there's plenty of time for people to sign up. So this is just to get you excited and get you to sign up. You may have not gotten the approval yet from your management, but time's a wasting. It is time to book those flights, make those hotel reservations, figure out what you're going to do to get there. This year, the event's going to be held in Bellevue, Washington.
Before we get too far into this episode, I did want to point out that the Technical Exchange is going to be March 17th through the 20th. So I think we forgot to mention the date of that. We have the city, but there's the date. So you have time as of the recording and release of this podcast. You should still have time to make all your plans to attend.
So this is the first time we've gone to the Pacific Northwest for the Technical Exchange. It is our second time on the West Coast. The first time we were in the San Diego area, and that was a great experience. And it's really nice to get in touch with attendees who are in that region of the country. So what usually happens, and I'm gonna just jump into the answer to my own question, is the type of attendees that we get are typically your laboratory managers, supervisors, technicians, and peripheral services around laboratory operations like calibration and certification and training programs, LIMS, which are laboratory information management systems, organizations, and all sorts of equipment manufacturers and sellers. But we tend to have a little bit of a local feel to our technical exchanges when we actually show up. I would say, Tracy, what would you say if you had to say a percentage breakdown of local versus national attendees?
Oh, wow. I would probably say 25%, 30% local. Definitely, we pick up, we're already noticing we're picking up a lot of people in Idaho, which is very close by. So that's great for those folks. But we're seeing some people from California and even Texas. I noticed today there were some people from Texas heading on up there. So yeah, I think it helps those people to cut down on expenses when we're in the area, and maybe they don't have to fly across the country and pay for that. Or
Yeah, and I will say we do get some international attendees as well, Brian. So don't forget that. You were just saying local and national. So I don't want to forget about the people that travel internationally to come to this event.
No offense to our Canadian friends, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're practically right there.
That's right.
When you're in Washington State. It's very close. But yeah, technically that is international, and we have actually some excellent and active participants from Canada that go to the technical exchange every year, including some speakers. So yeah, we definitely do not want to bring any disrespect to our Canadian friends that come to TechX and support that event. Let's talk about the layout of this one. We're doing things a little bit differently. Bob, why don't you tell us about how this technical exchange is going to be structured as opposed to what we've done in the past?
Yeah, so we're going to do something different this year, first time, and fingers crossed. I think it's going to go well. So the major change that we made this year, are making, is that we have, like always, we have 3 concurrent sessions and 3 concurrent tracks, but this year they are defined a little bit better and differently. So track 1, the first track, is content geared toward technicians and inspectors. Track 2 is geared towards lab managers and quality managers. Track 3 is geared towards managers, directors, and leaders. Now, having said that, anybody can go to any session that they want, but we're hoping that this is going to provide a little bit better balance. No matter who you are, you're going to have a number of sessions that fit your current role. Because one of the bits of feedback we've received in the past is that, oh, you seemed a little heavy in this area and a little light in this area. So we went into this planning with, okay, let's define the audience a little bit better, and let's try and make sure we have enough sessions and good balance for everybody.
Now that type of structure seems like it would create some challenges as well, because there are some topics that kind of overlap among those different positions. Tracy, can you tell us about what somebody can expect? You do a little bit deeper dive into the technician path.
Sure. I'm taking a look at the agenda that we have at this moment. For the technician track, we have laboratory tips and tricks. So things that we can share from our perspective, and as well as attendees sharing with each other, ways to make their lives easier in the laboratory setting. We have laboratory sampling practices. Going to bring in a subject matter expert on that to go through how to properly obtain samples for testing in the laboratory. We have some common findings sessions where we're going to get into common findings that we note on AASHTO resource and sometimes CCRL assessment reports, and why those things are common, kind of digging a little bit deeper into those things. Not only these are the things that we see pretty regularly, but what is it about these things that, why do they end up being findings on reports? Is the standard not clear? Is there a training issue that maybe that's not being communicated to the technical staff? So we have a lot of things like that planned for the technician track.
I'm going to say as well, when we're talking about all these sessions, they're not just the same thing, right? We have a couple different, we have sessions labeled as a couple different things. And so we have a presentation, which may be what you are thinking mostly when you think of a session, but that's mostly lecture with some Q&A time at the end. But then we also have panel discussions and roundtables and workshops. So there's variety, not only in the topics and who it's targeted for, but also in the types of sessions that we are offering this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Kim. We've received a lot of feedback over the years since we've been doing this. In 2017 was our first year. People wanted more panels. The first time we did a panel or two, people loved that. The attendees like, give me more of that. So we've infused more and more panels over the course of the years, and continue to get great feedback on that. And people also love the networking during the sessions. You're not, as Kim mentioned, you're not just sitting there listening to somebody talk the entire time. You're going to be actively participating if you like to. You don't have to. You're welcome to actively participate in most, if not all, of these sessions. So, and we welcome that at the Technical Exchange.
I think that's what really sets this event apart is the interaction, and it is an exchange, which I'm surprised Bob has not mentioned yet, but it is an exchange of information, and we do want the attendee participation. And I think from the feedback that we've gotten from years past is that sometimes people think that like just the interaction with other attendees is just like was valuable enough in addition to the content that we have that was just kind of a bonus, but they really got enough value out of it just meeting and interacting and networking, and kind of just like sessions were a bonus.
And I wanted to mention also that we get many repeat attendees at this event. And it surprised us at first, like, oh, wow, they keep coming back. And that's great. And when Bob and I are typically the ones preparing the agenda, we keep that in mind, that we're going to have a lot of new people attending the Technical Exchange, but we're also going to have repeat attendees. So we're very careful about keeping the content fresh. And at least, again, I'm looking at the draft agenda, at least half of these sessions are brand new to the Technical Exchange this year in 2025. That means, yes, the other half are topics that we've covered before, but we tweak these sessions every year based on feedback we've received from attendees. It's not like we're just pulling out the PowerPoint that we used in 2017 and here we're going to use this again in 2025. That is not how we operate. We just start from scratch, even on those topics that we repeat each year, to keep the content fresh.
Yes, and especially since we're targeting and with the tracks, like, so perhaps there was a topic that was more general last year because it wanted to cover everybody, but now because it's assigned the technician track, it's going to talk a little bit more about how the technicians and inspectors can use this information or use that stuff. So I think everything has been revamped for a little bit of a deeper understanding of the subject, even if it is a repeat, like you said.
Right. And even if it's a topic that we've covered before, you're probably going to hear a different and a fresh perspective just because of the people who are involved. It's not going to be the same exact people that got it last year or the year before. And we also have a really interesting and different event or session, pre-conference session on Monday afternoon that Tracy's doing. If you want to talk about that a little bit, Tracy.
Sure. That session's an internal audit certificate course. We have always been covering internal audits in some way at the Technical Exchange. And we asked for some feedback from attendees if they wanted a little bit more on that topic in a future event, and referring to a certificate course where you actually get a certificate of completion, and it's a workshop, as Kim mentioned before, where you're working in small groups and large groups. So I've been working on putting this session together. I'm actually going to do a run through with staff tomorrow. I'm excited about it. But this is a 3-hour course that's going to take place on Monday afternoon with a lot of activities. I think I have 15 activities planned during that particular session. And I hope that, if you're listening, this is something that you would want to come to and learn more about internal audits. If you're already doing internal audits, you will probably pick up a lot of tips and tricks that you can implement going forward in your internal audit process in your own facility. But we'll be writing nonconformities. We'll be going through audit scenarios. There's an audit skit to add some humor to it. We'll be identifying nonconformities, all kinds of things. So I'm really excited about it. Something brand new for the 2025 Technical Exchange.
I'm excited about that too, because if there's one thing people need training on, it's internal audits. Because I can tell you, even among all the accredited laboratories, they really struggle to carry out effective internal audits, even when they're trying. And yes, that does imply that some are not trying. It's true. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's more than just checking the box, right?
Yeah, it's more than checking the
right.
box.
And-
Far more than that.
And that 3-hour session is broken up into 2 parts. So don't think that
That's
you're
right.
just going to be sitting there doing activities for 3 hours straight. There are built-in breaks, so no worries about that.
Yep, you
I
get
wanna
bathroom
say-
breaks. Don't worry.
In case you're listening and not watching this podcast, that last came from Brian Johnson. Just want to
Yep, that was me. That was
clarify.
me. Thank you.
What?
Send all your hate mail to podcast@ashtoresource.org. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, love to hear from you. Please do.
So Tracy, I had you go down the one path with the technician. I think we should go down just a summary of the other two as well.
Sure.
So let's take the middle one, the manager supervisor track. What kind of
Right.
sessions can people expect to see there?
Sure. On that one, we're going to dive into the accreditation program requirements. So that'll be a good session for that. Best practices for lab managers, effective corrective actions. We're going to get into best QMS practices from ISO. This is a new session for 2025. Where we're going to go through some things that are in ISO standards 9001, 17025 that are not in AASHTO R18 that managers and supervisors may want to consider implementing in their organization. So that's going to be a panel, and quality manager best practices is on there too. And we'll have Benjamin Trujillo returning as a guest speaker for that particular session. And he always is very well received at the Technical Exchange, and we're very glad to have him back again in 2025.
He was
And
also a
then-
guest on the podcast. So if
Oh,
you
yes.
if you were like that episode, then you can meet him in person at the Technical Exchange.
That's right. And then on the director's track, I'm taking a look at that. We have Michelle Wolf of the United States Geological Survey. She's going to do a session on risk management. We have a leadership panel. This is new for 2025, recruiting challenges and solutions. So that's something a lot of people are struggling with. So come on and join us for that discussion. Another thing that's new for 2025 is effective communication techniques. We're actually going to have the communications manager from AASHTO in Washington, D.C. Give a presentation on communication techniques. Going to get into strategic planning panel and the cost of poor quality. Another returning guest speaker, Dennis DeVos, is going to give a session on the cost of poor quality.
And I just wanted to note that the communication session is going to be done by Maggie, who is the director of communications and marketing at AASHTO. I didn't want you to demote her on that. She's the director, Tracy.
Yes. Thank you for that. And then Bob, there's a session, mental health awareness. Maybe you wanted to give a plug for that one.
Yeah, so on Thursday, we don't have the tracks anymore. We have 2 sessions in the morning, one on mental health awareness. And this has been done at a couple other AASHTO meetings. And I'm just going to say it's been very, very powerful. And you need to be there. So I hope we'll have good attendance. We're also going to have a time management panel. I think that's going to be a great topic. Everybody struggles with not having enough time and trying to get everything done in the time that you do have. So we're going to have a panel session there. And Maggie Kaspersky, AASHTO's Director of Communications and Marketing, will also be on that panel. So first time for her being at TechX. So thanks, Maggie. She's going to be great. You're going to love Maggie. And then we'll have one other session about common ASTM quality management nonconformities. And then we'll have our closing session where we have a general Q&A, give out some prizes, take your questions, take your suggestions, and wrap it up.
Now, one thing I was noticing as we were going through the summaries of the different tracks is there appear to be a lot of sessions that might even convey to other industries. Tracy, do you think there's any opportunities for people in that, and I'm especially thinking in that Seattle area, that there probably are people from other companies that might be interested in hearing what goes on in another industry related to quality?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I had mentioned Michelle Wolf. She works for the federal government with the United States Geological Survey. She's not working in a testing laboratory, construction materials testing laboratory. She brings a fresh perspective to risk management, risk analysis, but that concept applies to all industries. So absolutely, that goes beyond the CMT industry. Same with Dennis DeVos. His background is in the automotive industry. But he gave a presentation last year and related it to what he's experienced in the automotive industry. But again, that crosses over into our industry, a lot of those principles and practices. So absolutely, yeah, anyone outside of this industry is most welcome to attend, and they can come. You can even just come for a day to the technical exchange. There's a daily rate to attend instead of, committing to the entire 4 days.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tracy. We're also going to have Karen Dove from ANEW, which is a local organization in the Seattle area, also talking about recruiting. So she'll be on that panel, and she has nothing to do with our industry, but I know that she's going to provide a lot of great information that can apply to any industry. So I feel like we have a really well-rounded, diverse group of people that will be talking and presenting. So Brian, I think everybody from Microsoft and Costco and Bowen should show up to the technical exchange.
It wouldn't hurt. It really wouldn't, because there are some lessons to be learned from every industry. And I know construction materials might not sound like the most exciting area for some of those folks because it's not their chosen field of study and work. But we've had people from other industries encounter the issues and the solutions and the strategies that have been imparted by our people in our industries, and they're kind of interested in it, and they say, wow, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. It stretches their brains a little bit. It gives them some different perspective. It might help them solve problems that they have that they're dealing with, because they always think about it the way that they've thought about it.
Right.
We've even had people from aerospace backgrounds come in and say, why are you guys so focused on calibration of this insignificant thing? And I think, wow, well, maybe we're going a little bit too far if the people in the aerospace industry think that it's a little bit overkill. Perhaps they are correct. So it's good for us to hear that stuff too.
I also want to point out that if you are curious and you want to see the draft agenda that Tracy was talking about, you can go to ashtoresource.org/events, and there's a link there to the registration site and the meeting site, and I will put that in the show notes as well. But you get more than just all this great content that we are going over. We get more than the sessions. Yes, there are over 31 different sessions this year, including the pre-event workshops that Tracy is doing. I am doing one that's virtual on March 11th about how to prepare for the technical exchange as an attendee, if this is your first time, or if you're an introvert and a little nervous about going to a big event. This will definitely help. It'll be recorded for those who can't do it. But what else is included?
I'll tell you, the thing that people, I think, love the most about this event are the networking opportunities. And we hear that over and over and over again on the feedback, that people love talking to their peers about these topics and learning from each other, sharing best practices. That's what it's all about. That's why we called it a technical exchange from the get-go. And every year you'll just see more and more of that networking. You can network within the sessions because, again, you're not just sitting there listening to a person talk the whole time. You're actually working with other people in groups at many of the sessions. And there are tons of breaks in the mornings and afternoons. We purposely scheduled 30-minute breaks so there is enough time to do some networking with people. Of course, you can sit with people at lunchtime and chat with them. At that time, you can network with our sponsors that are exhibiting there at the technical exchange. We also have an offsite event. The planning is in the works for that, and a lot of networking takes place there in a more casual setting. So I would say that that is one of the biggest draws of this event.
And we can't forget about the icebreaker on Monday night.
That's right.
Did you mention that?
I did not.
No, see? Okay, good. As I started to say it, I'm like, oh wait, you might have mentioned it as
No.
I kind of half zoned out since I already know what's included.
And
so
that's
I
right
apologize.
after that 3-hour internal audit certificate course with Tracy. Then you can go to the icebreaker reception and let loose a little bit. So
and break that ice. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Break that ice. But
Somebody mentioned food, so I'm going to jump in and mention food because your registration covers all of those things that Tracy and Kim mentioned, but it also includes food. Let's see, breakfast on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, lunch on Tuesday and Wednesday. The breaks, we always have food at the afternoon breaks. We'll have food at the icebreaker reception. So all of that, the offsite event on Wednesday night, everything is included in your registration fee.
Yep.
And the event ends on noon on Thursday. So you actually do have time to travel back and get back home Thursday night. It's not a full day. So I do think some people do enjoy that they're not having to then add another travel day after it. And that is why we also start the event on Monday, or technically like Monday night, so people don't have to travel over the weekend. So.
Right.
All right. So we talked a little bit about the time of year that this is in and where it's going to be. And I'm going to talk about something kind of mundane related to that travel. But let's talk about packing. How do you pack for this trip, Tracy?
Oh,
you need the you need to have plenty of different
all right
situations covered, correct? Because we've got the sessions
correct
where you're sitting and you're in a more professional setting. You've got the evening events. How do you prepare yourself for such a trip?
Right. Well, I would like to begin by saying I am in awe of Sonia Peterbaugh, who is the laboratory assessment program director here. She packs everything in her backpack. That is all she takes for a week-long event. I don't think I could ever do that. But yes, Brian, I like options. Yes, I do. The 3 other people on the call here know that I have a little bit of an obsession with shoes. So I want to make sure that I'm packing many shoe options. But yes, the meeting rooms can tend to get a little bit chilly. So we do recommend that people bring something with long sleeves. It's probably going to be chilly outside as well, but all of you have probably been in meeting rooms and hotels where it feels like it's sub-zero. So definitely bring a denim jacket like I'm wearing today, or some sort of other sweater to cover those situations. But then it could also get really hot in the rooms. It's hard to tell. It's always a balancing act with that. But the event in general is casual. There is no specific dress code. Be comfortable. If you want to dress business casual, that's great. If you are more comfortable in jeans and a t-shirt, that's awesome. We don't care. We just want to see you there. I just rhymed, which is really great, right? Yeah, but just be comfortable.
I would say most people are dressing at least business casual.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's I know I asked the right person that question because you covered it all. Because really my experience going to these conferences is you think it's going to be too cold, you bring a bunch of warm clothes, it's too hot.
Right.
And sometimes you think it's going to be too hot, it's freezing, and you
Right.
just can't. And sometimes it goes back and forth. So just if you're not used to going to conferences, this is just the way it is,
Right.
and
And
you have to be prepared for it.
and being in the Pacific Northwest, you may have heard that it sometimes rains in the Pacific Northwest.
That's a good point.
So there is probably pretty high likelihood that it's going to rain at some point during TechX week. Yes, we're going to be inside almost the entire time, but the offsite event is at a different location, and I believe it's walkable from our hotel. So if you want to walk to the offsite event, and you might want to bring a rain jacket or an umbrella or something like that, just to cover your bases in the event of precipitation.
Yeah. And in the sessions, typically you can just bring something to write with or your laptop or something, because typically like
Yeah.
if there's an activity, you're going to be provided with a worksheet or something, but have something to write with. People usually have their mobile phones on them. Sometimes there are surveys that happen. So just be prepared for those kind of activities as well.
Absolutely. Or visit one of our exhibitors and grab a free pen from them, because many of our exhibitors bring those types of things with them as
That's a good
giveaways.
point.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. We do have sponsors, and I think we're still accepting sponsors for this event. What we'd like to do is fill up our sponsors room, and usually a lot of activity is going on with the sponsors at our meeting. Bob, do you want to talk about that?
Every year we have sponsors, vendors, exhibitors, and I think last year we had 22 or 23, and we'd like to hit that same number this year. We provide a lot of opportunities for the sponsors to meet the attendees. So we're very intentional about where we put the sponsors and the vendors, where we schedule breaks. We try and get them as much traffic as possible. Last year in Boston was definitely our best year in terms of numbers, but I can remember seeing so many conversations going on during the breaks. A lot of really good conversations, a lot of good input, a lot of good exchanges. And the sponsors and the vendors, they are a critical part to this, because not only do they help us with the cost of the meeting, but more importantly, they are vital pieces to this industry, whether they're equipment manufacturers, standards producers, calibration agency, LIMS. Gosh, who am I? What type of vendor am I missing? I mean, everybody really who is involved in this industry in one way or another generally is there. Great for them, but it's also great for the attendees as well. And Brian, I heard that perhaps there might be, since we're on a podcast right now, I heard there might be an actual recording of a podcast in Bellevue in March.
There might be. Yeah, I have done this before at another meeting, but it was a NetPep meeting. But I think what we should do is conduct a few interviews during the week with attendees, and then Kim can package it to kick off the next season of the
Yes.
podcast, and we can have a little series about what's been going on with different activities. So it wouldn't necessarily be about the event. It would be more about what's going on, what kind of conversations are going on.
And I would encourage anyone who's listening to this podcast to come up to Brian and say, I heard your podcast and I love it, because I want to have a little friendly wager with him of how many times that's going to happen at the technical exchange. So I encourage you to do that. Brian did not know we were going to have that friendly little bet, but we are.
Are we doing an over-under bet? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, but we haven't set the parameters yet. But I'm just saying, I don't know what the number is, but I'm leaning over. I'm more optimistic, I think, than Brian is.
Yeah,
the number is 10.
10. Well, 9.5. You can't have that over and under at an even number. You can't tie. So it has to be a half.
9 point something.
Okay.
I think he might be less optimistic than I am with that, because I think we can beat that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
I think just
Okay.
out of spite, somebody would
Well,
beat that.
the number can and will change right up to March.
But yes, go and bug Brian about the podcast because
Yeah,
I
please
know he would
do.
love that. And Bob too, because he's our boss. So tell him how much you love listening to the podcast.
I love the podcast.
I feel like we covered all of the bases for the gist of what the agenda is going to be like, all the fun extra stuff. Um, the why we've done it, we haven't really talked on. I know we've talked about it on previous episodes in previous years, but I think, Bob, why don't you go into a short little why do we even host a technical exchange? Because it is a lot of work for our staff. So why do we put this much effort into a 4-day event?
We do it because there's so much great information out there, and this is a way to connect all the people and the great information so that everybody can learn together and improve together in a nutshell. And we want to be part of that conversation. We want to be the conduit. We want to be that mechanism that brings all that together. And we have found that it has worked really well. So we will keep on doing it, keep on trying, and keep on making it better. Nobody mentioned feedback. There will be a number of opportunities to provide feedback, including in person and just letting us know. We really want to hear feedback, all of it, what you like, what you don't like, suggestions for the future. If you'd like to be involved as a speaker or a panelist, all that we want to hear. And we'd love to have those conversations on site in Bellevue.
I wanted to touch on something Kim mentioned, the fun factor. I think people really do have a great time at the technical exchange. I know we do. People from AASHTO Resource that are attending, it's a tremendous amount of work. Yes, you're absolutely right, Kim. But once we're there and everything's in place, we really enjoy being there and talking to our customers and answering questions. And I think they really enjoy meeting us. For the first time, they may have been a customer for 25, 30 years but have never met us in person. So they love the opportunity to get to talk to us. But you've been hearing the banter throughout this podcast, and you'll find that at TechX, especially for the AASHTO resource-led sessions. You know, they're light. The topics can be heavy, but we infuse some fun, and we try not to keep everything super serious. There are a lot of things to learn, but you can learn and have fun at the same time. So I did want to put a plug in for that.
You can find more information about the technical exchange at ashtoresource.org/events.
All right, sounds good. So I hope this episode encourages you to come and join us in Bellevue, Washington on March 16th, 17th, 17th. 16th that's when I'm flying out with my giant luggage, with all my stuff.
With all your shoes.
With all my shoes. And come help us join us there to be part of the quality management system revolution in the construction materials industry. And the revolution will be podcasted.
Thanks for listening to AASHTO Resource Q&A. If you'd like to be a guest or just submit a question, send us an email at podcast@ashtoresource.org or call Brian at 240-436-4820. For other news and related content, check out AASHTO Resource's social media accounts or go to ashtoresource.org.